Welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to share with you my Time Thief deck profile. And Time Thief is a really cool deck. It's basically one of my favorites because of the fact that it shares a lot of similarities in its combo style and everything with Raidraptors, which Raidraptors is one of my absolute favorite decks of all time. And basically, while it is a little bit more fragile than Raidraptors, it is able to achieve much more in the deck itself. So I think this deck is really cool, and it's also kind of like on a budget, so if you're interested, you might be able to pick this up for relatively pretty cheap. There are some particular cards here, like Adjuster, which is one of the new cards that's a little bit expensive, but for the most part, this list is also pretty friendly budget. But before we jump right into the video itself, I'm going to remind you that if you want to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. Let me know in the comments down below what you think and what you will change specifically, because I'm really interested in all of your opinions. And if you like the video, give it a like. And without further ado, let's jump right into the video itself. Alright, so jumping right into the list itself, we're going to start things off with the Time Thief cards. Obviously, we're going to start with the 3 copies of Regulator, the 3 copies of Winder as pretty standard, the 2 copies of Adjuster, the 1 copy of Puzzle Ship, and the 1 copy of Chrono Quarter. In my opinion, this is a pretty standard list, although some people actually might say that you need to run 3 Adjuster, but I think for the most part, at least 2 Adjuster is what you need. Now, these all cards are basically your, your Time Thief blood, basically. Mostly you run only monsters, you only run 1 additional spell or trap, and trap, basically. So like these 10 and plus additional 2 cards are basically the Time Thief engine, which again we'll get to the spells and traps when we'll get there. Regulator is your most important card in the deck. Basically, it contributes itself if you control no other monsters, and special summon 2 of these directly from your deck with different names in defense position and effects intact. Which is the 2 that you're mostly going to summon are going to be Adjuster and Winder. Winder on normal or special summon search for you a Time Thief card. And also, if it's in the hand and you control an Xyz monster, you can detach 1 Xyz material from that Xyz monster and then special summon it from the hand. Adjuster on normal or special summon able to dump a Time Thief card to the graveyard. And also, if you normal or special summon a Time Thief monster, you're able to basically special summon it from the hand. But unfortunately, unlike the rest of the cards, you can only use 1 of her effects per turn, which I think it's kind of stupid. That's why I like to run it at 2. Although sometimes I miss the 3rd, most of the time I don't really need it. It's kind of like a weird thing. I'm not really 100% sure. Sometimes I actually want the 3rd copy, but I haven't really tested enough to justify the 3rd copy for now. I think 2 is doing just fine, but again, if you want to run 3rd copy yourself, you're more than welcome to change 1 card here on the list and just run it instead. Then for Puzzle Ship, this is basically the same effect as Winder, but instead of from the hand, it's from the graveyard. And it's also have an additional nice effect, I guess, that sometimes come up. Mostly doesn't. And then Chrono Quarter is probably the worst one, but again, sometimes it's come up that you banish your, Redoer, and then this triggers in the graveyard and giving you another extender. In some particular French combos, which is like Regulator plus Winder, together, instead of opening only Regulator, you are able to use this card effect to its full extent. So that's actually kind of cool to also have the 5th name. It actually comes up quite a bit. But that's pretty much does it for the Time Thief. Now we'll move on into the rest of the engines, and for the first engine is, well, the Raidraptor Phantom Knights engine, which is 3 Strangulanius, double Raider's Wing, 1 Singing Lanius, and then the 1 copy of Silent Boots. Now, originally in my previous list, I ran only 2 of this, 1 of this, 1 Mimicry, and then 1 Singing, and of course the Silent Boots. But I came more and more to the conclusion that actually a 3rd copy of Strangle is really important. Now, of course, if you want to run a 3rd Adjuster, cutting 1 copy of this actually might not be the worst thing in the world to decide, or any of the other monsters, which again we'll talk about them. But I think this is a really good engine for what it does. Basically, Silent Boots is work with your Shade Brigandine. This is basically a combination of Puzzle Ship and a Winder effect in 1 for the Xyz Special Summon Detaching, also giving your Dark Monster protection. And it counts as a Phantom Knight and a Raidraptor card, so sometimes if you draw into this, you still have these 2 as targets. This one is just a really good extender, and this is just a great extender generally, although sometimes it's locking into Dark. And sometimes you have to use this effect before you even control another Dark, like an Xyz monster to have a Dark as a material and then trigger his secondary effect. So sometimes you have to summon this directly from your hand, and it's basically your best extender in the deck, because it's just freely summoned with no other restrictions. But yeah, that's pretty much does it for the Raidraptor stuff. And then for your last few extenders, 3 parallel exceeds, pretty important, 2 tracers, and then 1 recharger. This is basically the place that, again, you can cut 1 card here and basically be fine. Like, you could cut 1 card here and run a third adjuster. It's totally up to you. Now, sometimes I actually think I want to cut these and run another engine, which is like a small Utopia engine, but most of the time these do what they need to do. Pearl Exceed is just, if you Exceed summoned, or should I say Link Summon, you get this out of your hand, another one from deck, which is pretty awesome. This one is just summoned with Quick Launch, which is a free extension, and then you can trigger any card, or should I say pop any card, and then you summon this directly from your deck, which again is additional free extension, which is very, very good. So again, you could cut these and run something else, but I think these do what they need to do, and it's very, really important. Also, Recharger, just to remind you, has 0 attack, so it also works with all Mirage, which is pretty good in that regardless. And also, the reason why I also like these is because they are dark, because there are a lot of extenders that are different attributes that are not dark, and they pretty much clash really badly if you also have a Strangulainess in your hand, which then will lock you into dark. So that's kind of, again, the other reason why I'm doing it like that. But again, you can change the lineup of extenders however you like. And then for your hand traps, which we have 6 slots for these, I run double copies of Ash, double copies of Ghost, and Ghost Bell and double copies of Effect Veiler. Basically a standard hand trap in my lineup, in my opinion. Honestly, you can change these however you want, but I kind of felt I want to see multiple different kinds of hand traps. And Effect Veilers are really good, Ghost Bells are really good this format as well, and Ash is always good, so having all of them is pretty awesome. Also, there's also the option to run Pearl Exceed. Infinite Impermanence, but Infinite Impermanence clash really, really badly with the trap lineup of this deck, because you do need to use your traps like with things like Shade Brigandine, so you don't really want to run things like Infinite Impermanence, because this deck loves to use Shade Brigandine as another level 4 extender. So basically these are the best hand traps. Again, you can cut some other cards, but I think like 6 hand traps, it's whatever you need for the most part, but you can cut cards and add more hand traps if you feel like it. But that's pretty much does it for the monsters. A very a very big size number of monsters, basically 29 including the hand traps. Now we'll move on to the spells and traps. And for the spells first, 3 Quick Launch, 1 Startup, 1 Rank Up Magic, the Phantom Knight version, and then the Shave Force. Basically, this is a standard spell lineup for Time Thief Raidraptors, or, Time Thief in general for the current list. This is for your rocket monsters. This is actually a lot better right now because you have a lot more Time Thief names, 2 additional than normal, or even 3 if you're on a third adjuster. And then these 2 is just to rank up spells that you either able to set or special, or use with the effect of Shade Brigandine, and then you draw into them and they're really, really useful. So these are also pretty good for most of your combos. Like I said, this card is a lot more useful, and sometimes going second you actually search this with a Winder instead of searching the trap, because you're not able to do anything with the trap going second. And also you're able to maybe search this instead of another monster, because sometimes you need to special summon a specific monster directly from your hand, which will be really useful. So the addition of the other Time Thief name for a monster actually made this card a lot better. But that's pretty much does it for the spells, only 6, and then for the traps, also a very small size of traps, which is only 5, which is Shade Brigandine, Fogblade, and Retrograde. This is all the trap lineup that I think that you need. Now, of course, you could change it, but I think for the most part, this is all what you need. This is another level 4 extender. It is a very bad top deck if you draw into multiple copies of it, or, draw into it after you use the effect, but it's still a very, very good card. Fogblade is your other trap to search, or, beside your rank up as well if you draw into it, so you have the other options to do. And then Retrograde is the counter trap that you can search with your Winder going first, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that's pretty standard on that regard as well. Nothing really much to explain about that. So we're going to done with the main deck and jump into the extra deck, which here where things are actually getting interesting for explanation. So for the Time Thief extra deck, for me, I run one of each of the Time Thief Xyz. Basically, I run the Redoer, the Perpetua, and I also decided to throw in the Double Barrel. Now, some people might think to themselves that you should run also F-Zero or something like that, which again, I'm going to say spoiler right now, I don't run the F-Zero package, but I decided that I like Double Barrel more, not only because of budget versions, because specifically I can get the F-Zero, it's just not here yet, but The reason why I also like this is that this card is a lot more underappreciated than people believe. This card is actually so much better than you realize. It's not amazing, and most of the time you do prefer the Redoer, but this card can do so many cool things. The first thing is that his spell effect is untargeting Steal until the end phase, and his negate effect is untargeting negate on monster effect on the field until the, generally. So this card is really, really strong, a lot more than people realize. And sometimes you just summon this and this together, attach to it a trap, maybe with a Brigadine, and then attach with this spell, and then you're able to do some very, very cool stuff with it. So this card is very, very strong, very underappreciated, and just because I want to debut it, I actually just want to run it here. Again, you can cut this down on any other rank 4 of your choice, but I feel like this is just a really good card. And then Perpetua is just Perpetua. You summon one of these during the standby phase if they're in the graveyard, so you summon them back. And it also can attach things, which is pretty cool. And then Redoer is pretty much one of the most known rank 4 Exceeds at this point. Now, one thing that I said before I'll jump into the rest of the Exceeds lineup is that I don't run the F-Zero, and that is the fact that F-Zero really clash really badly with the deck because you have a lot more locking into darks with your cards. And unfortunately, if you do that, unlike raidraptors, which can run it pretty easily, you don't really have the ability to squeeze in the small engine that basically allow you to go second, which is this one. Because this deck, unlike raidraptors, doesn't really have built-on beaters, unlike it. So we do have to run this as an engine, and if you run the F-Zero, you kind of sometimes also stop yourself from having access to other cards in your extra deck. And also, again, you lock yourself into darks a lot more easier, and you have less extenders than raidraptors, so that's why I decided to go with this instead. This is basically your going first package with your rank 4s. Basically, this is 3 interruptions in 1. And this is basically your OTK package going second. It's pretty simple. You need only 2 level 4s darks. You make this, you basically can OTK your opponent. It's pretty simple and pretty self-explanatory. I don't really think I need to explain any of these way too much. And then for the last Xyz that are generic stuff that I'm using, Evil Swarm Nightmare, because 2 darks can make this, and this could be a very annoying effect. Abyss Dweller, because graveyard setup is annoying for people to deal with, and Infinity because of Soul Shape Force, and it's an Omni Negate. It's pretty simple on that lineup as well. And then for the last 5 cards, the parts of the engine: double 4 Strix, 1 Rusty, 1 Wise, and 1 Mirage. This is basically your Link and combo package. This one is really important. You're able to summon this one, you summon this, and then you summon another copy of this to trigger this card effect, and you get yourself a lot of searches, which is really important. Wise is a very, very strong card. Definitely better in raidraptors in the terms of how useful it is, because in raidraptors you kind of able to do things a lot more, how should I say this, protected and more extensively. It's easier for you to do stuff with this card, unlike Time Thief, which is kind of a little bit worse in that regard. I still think it's really, really cool, but I think raidraptors do it better. And then we have Rusty, because Rusty is, part of your Phantom Knight engine, and All Mirage for the off chances that, how should I say this? Oh yeah, your opponent negates your Regulator, or you don't have any other monster instead of a monster with 0 or 0 attack, and to 1,000 attack, and you're able to use it, and then trigger something like a Pearl Exceed directly in your hand, which is really good. So that's pretty much does it for the extra deck, and does it for the deck profile as a whole. Honestly, nothing really much crazy to say about Time Thief. They didn't really change that much. They just got 2 additional cute tools, which is Double Barrel, which I think is very underappreciated, and Adjuster. Pretty much very standard for what they do normally. But yeah, that's pretty much does it for the deck profile. So now we're going to move on into the combo section. Welcome to the combo section, and in the combo section I'm going to share with you 3 combos that Time Thief players supposed to know. And the first of them is obviously the most obvious combo out of all of them, the 1-card Regulator 7 Interruption Endboard. While it is a pretty known combo, some people are sometimes struggle with this one, and I kind of want to go over it because it's the most important combo to understand also the functions of the deck, and it's a very, very easy combo to learn. So for our only card in hand, we're going to use Regulator. So we're going to start things off, obviously, by normal summoning the Regulator, and we're going to tribute the Regulator to summon directly from our deck the Time Thief Adjuster and the Time Thief Winder. Normally, with old times, you actually summon the Buzzle Ship, but in this particular case, because we have Adjuster, you summon Adjuster instead, because, well, it's better. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to count this as Chainlink 1, this link 1 as Chainlink 2. Very important that this will be Chainlink 1, because dumping Buzzle Ship into the graveyard is far more important than getting the search. Because the ability to get the Buzzle Ship to the graveyard could sometimes prove to be another extension that can get you into another play that you're normally not able to do anyway. So having the ability to do that is far better than getting the counter trap most of the time. So what we're going to do is at Chainlink 2, we're going to add the Retrograde, and Chainlink 1, obviously, we're going to send the Buzzle Ship into our graveyard. Then we're going to take these two, and we're going to make the 4 Strix. Use Buzzle Ship effect first, and if there will be some particular hand traps like Ogre or something like that, we want to use this card effect first, so we'll at least get a monster on board. And we're going to use the effect to detach one of the materials, which doesn't really matter which one, and we're going to summon the Buzzle Ship, then triggering the effect of 4 Strix itself to basically search to our hand the Singing Lanius, and then special summon it because we control an Xyz monster. Then use these two. We will make the Y-Strix to our extra monster zone, and use this effect to special summon Raider's Wing directly from our deck. We then use these two immediately again, make the second 4 Strix, detach specifically the Wing this time, and going to add to our hand the Strangulanius, which will also trigger the effect of Y-Strix to set to our side of the field the Rank Up Magic Soul Shave Force. Then immediately use the effect of Soul Shave Force to then basically target the Raidraptor 4 Strix in our graveyard, pay half of our life points, of course, before, and then make the Cyber Dragon Infinity, which apparently fell into the ground for me in a second. I should say to the floor for a second. So we're going to make the Infinity, and then kind of like protect ourselves if our opponent didn't Nibiru us first or anything, which is kind of weird if they didn't Nibiru us before this, but, you know, it's still a situation that we do, so we're going to go with the Infinity. And then we're going to use the effect of Raider's Wing in the graveyard, detach the Buzzle Ship, and special summon itself. Now, because we have the ability to, we're going to use these two, and we're going to make the Rusty. Then we're going to use Rusty's effect, send the Silent Boots, set the Rank Up Magic, the second one in our deck, the Phantom one, and then we're going to basically use Silent Boots effect to banish itself and add to our hand the, Shade Brigandine. We're then going to use the effect of Strangulanius because we control a dark monster, special summon itself, and now because we control a dark monster, or should I say an Xyz monster that have a dark Xyz monster as a material, we're also able to revive from our graveyard the Singing Lanius, which are our level 4 Raidraptor monster in their graveyard. Then we're going to take Raider's Wing and this card specifically to make Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon to our side of the field. I also like to make things in defense position just in case of Lightning Storm, although in this format it doesn't really matter that much, but I still like to do it just in case. Regardless, we're going to make it specifically, like I said, with Raider's Wings to grade this card protection, then finally use this card, make it into a level 4, and use these two to make your Redoer, and set this card to your side of the field, and basically end your turn. Basically, like I said, this is a 7 interruption end board, and in the way that it's like this. First and foremost, you have Infinity because it's an Omni Negate against everything. We then have this card, which during the opponent's turn, you're able to use the Rank Up Magic here to make it into a Dark Requiem, which with the 3 materials will become 3 interruptions and can revive Xyz from your graveyard as long as you have this as a material. Basically, you're going to touch these two first and then the Dark Rebellion. And then you also have Shade Brigandine, or should I say Rusty, which will trigger when you summon an Xyz monster to its Link Arrow. So basically, you're going to use this card I should say this card, to summon this, then summon it to this arrow. This will trigger, pop a card, and then we'll have 3 additional interruptions here, already making it to 5. The Redoer, also kind of like, I guess, 1.5 interruptions as well, because it's able to take a card from your opponent top deck, which sometimes could be very important for them, but, you know, it is what it is sometimes. And then it's also have its own bounce effect, and you also have Retrograde, which is another interruption, because, you know, you control a Time Thief Xyz, so that's kind of like how that works. But yeah, that's pretty much does it for combo number 1, the cookie cutter combo, the most important combo to know when you're playing this deck, the 1-card regular combo. That's pretty much does it for combo number 1. Let's move on into combo number 2. Alright, so for combo number 2, we're going to do something very, very cool, which is basically kind of pushing you out of your normal Time Thief comfort zone that mostly a lot of people kind of like envision in their mind, and basically kind of just going into the line that what happened if you lock yourself into dark too early and you have no other choice to do that. And for these 2 cards to be used, we're going to use the 1 Time Thief Adjuster and the 1 Strangulanias for a card for this combo. Basically, this is going to follow a very, very different, how should I say this, combo line in a little points. Mostly going to follow still the standard way, but because you locked yourself into this dark early, there are a few kind of particular changes that need to be made in the combo, because it is what it is. But now let's get started. So to start things off, we're going to normal summon the Adjuster. Adjuster is going to dump to the grave the Buzzle Ship, and then because we control a dark monster, we're going to special summon Strangulanias. Unfortunately, we'll not be able to use this effect, but it is what it is, and we're going to use these 2 to make your 4 Strix. Buzzle Ship will do the same thing as before. We'll detach one of the materials to special summon itself, and then we'll detach the other to add to our hand the Singing Lanius and freely special summon it. We're then going to use 2 Winged Beasts to make our Wise Strix, and then Wise Strix effect will allow us to summon directly from our deck the Raider's Wing, just as usual. Then we're going to use these 2, once again, to create your 4 Strix. 4 Strix will detach the Raider's Wing, specifically this card, you have to detach this and not the other. And then we're going to add to our hand the 2nd copy of Strangulanias, which we will not be able to use, but mostly going to be used as follow-up, because we don't really have a use for this card, unfortunately. Then Wise Strix will actually set this time to your side of the field the 1 copy that you have in your deck of Phantom Knights or Rank Up Magic Force, because, well, Soul Shade Force is not really useful for you for this particular combo. Then we're going to use Raider's Wing effect, detach the Buzzle Ship, and special summon itself out of the graveyard. And then we're going to use these 2 to make your Rusty, as before. Rusty will then send the Silent Boots and set the Shade Brigandine, or should I say, the Shade Brigandine trap. And then you're going to use Silent Boots effect, banish, and add to your hand the Fogblade. We're then going to use this card effect, special summon, and use these 2 to make a Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon with the additional trap here. And that's going to be our end board, basically, because of this particular, opening hand. Basically, we still got 5 interruptions with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the Fogblade. It is a little bit worse because we had to use this card effect before, but it's still a very, very good combo in whatever you do. So basically, you will still get yourself 1 card for follow-up, so you still have 4 cards in hand, and you have 5 interruptions, which is nothing to be ashamed of. Basically, even if your opponent uses droplets, you still have this interruption, which is kind of like 3 interruptions by itself. So your opponent need to be very careful what they do anyway. So this is still a very, very good combo. But that's pretty much does it for combo number 2. Let's move on into the final combo, which is combo number 3. Welcome to the 3rd combo, and in the 3rd combo, I'm going to share with you a combo that, in my opinion, is actually very important to learn at least the baseline, because sometimes you're not able to open up with your Time Thief engine, and sometimes you're not able to open up with any other cards that are better to use than a Raider's Wing and a Pearl Exceed. You basically still be able to get a really, really good end board with this, but you're not opening up with the ideal cards, unfortunately. And it's very, very important to learn that these 2 card combo still can end you with 6 interruptions, which is pretty, pretty good. So let's get started. So starting things off, we're going to normal summon Raider's Wing, and we're going to follow it up because it's a monster that have less than 1,000 attack, and we normal summon it to make our, well, Mirage. We'll trigger the Parallel Exceed effect, special summon itself, and special summon another copy directly from your deck. Then we're going to use these two to make your first 4 Strix. Detach the material because of Raider's Wing first, as usual. Unfortunately, that does mean that we'll not be able to use this effect later, but it is important. And detach the second one to search from your deck to your hand the Singing Lanius. Special summon Singing, and then use these two to make your Y-Strix. Y-Strix effect, as usual, we're going to make we're going to summon the second Raider's Wing, or it could be even a Strangulanius, but I like to summon the second Raider's Wing. And then we're going to use these two once again to make a second 4 Strix. However, in this particular time, it doesn't really matter which one you detach because we already used the effect of Raider's Wing. So we're going to detach one of the Raider's Wing to basically, well, add to your hand the Strangulanius, and then set with the Y-Strix effect the Rank Up Magic Soul Shave Force. We're then going to activate its effect, and we're going to basically target the 4 Strix in our graveyard, summon it after paying half of our life points, and then special summon once again the Infinity, just like in Combo 1. Then, again, because unfortunately we're not able to detach, unfortunately we have to go with these two immediately, and create, from our extra deck, the Rusty Bardiche. We're then going to use Rusty's effect, send the Silent Boots, and set to our side of field the Rank Up Magic Force. Then, Strangulanius will special summon itself, and since we do control, of course, an Xyz monster with a Dark Xyz material, we're able to special summon from our graveyard a Raidraptor monster level 4 or lower, and what do you know it, this card always counts as a Raidraptor monster, so we're going to summon this, and then make our immune Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon to our side of the field. But we're not done with that. We haven't used the effect of Silent Boots. Now, in normal particular situations, if you have the additional 1 extender, you would search the Shade Brigandine. However, because we don't really have that option, we're going to search this card, the Phantom Knight Fogblade, and we're going to set this to our side of the field here, giving us our 6th and final interruption with the 4 interruptions between these two and the Cyberdarian Infinity. We also have here, instead of a 7th interruption, at least the Mirage protection in a way. And yeah, this is kind of like what happens sometimes if you don't open up with your Time Thief endboard. Sometimes you need to go into different directions, use your Parallel Exceeds or other cards in different ways that you wouldn't expect. It's kind of like a weird thing. Sometimes you don't even go into an Mirage because if you open up with like a quick launch, you don't even go into the Mirage before, so you do things differently. But it's very, very important to understand that this is how the combos sometimes need to go in order for you to play. But that's pretty much does it for the combo section. Hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something new regardless. But now, let's move on into the next deck choices and closing up the video. Alright, so wrapping up the video, we're going to have 4 deck choices coming up, and I decided to change those a little bit because I want to do some things that people are interested in that I actually wanted to do for a while as well, but people have also been requesting for. Before the Dawn of Majesty updates, which actually specifically I think with Dawn of Majesty I will be able to do quite more because I'm a little bit on a vacation right now, but you know, there are a lot of really cool things that I want to do with that, but for now we're going to do things differently until I'm going to get the cards from Dawn of Majesty and all that stuff. So, for the 4 options I'm going to present, first and foremost, we're going to have a Shadow deck returning from last time that I kind of presented this. It can be either Invoked Shadows or, you know, normal Shadows. Basically, I'm not going to do Despia Shadows, so it's one of those two if I will decide. Probably going to be Pure Shadows because I like Pure Shadows a lot. Secondly, we're going to have Blue Eyes, so if you want to choose Blue Eyes, you're more than welcome to choose that. The third option is a very requested one for a very long time, which I actually thought I will wait until Brothers of Legend, but because Brothers of Legend got delayed, I'm actually going to do an update for Raidraptors right now, if you want to, for next week. So for anybody who's wondering about Brothers of Legend and all that stuff, I'm going to do Raidraptors. I might actually need to proxy 2 cards, but for the most part, I have everything. So it's beside those 2 cards that kind of like change a little bit of the extra deck. I have pretty much everything. And then for the last option, I have Abyss Actors. So we have 4 options, which I'm going to go over them again: Shadows, Blue Eyes, Raidraptors, and Abyss Actors. These are the 4 options that you're able to choose from, and let me know in the comments down below what you want to see next week specifically, and I will make a video for that. But that's pretty much does it for the video. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you do. Remember, creativity is the key in this game. Have a good day, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.